SUA CEO offered $1 million to fix her husband's Ducati. A single dad found a $6 murder clue. What could be hidden behind a $1 million repair request? Why would a single dad discover a clue worth only $6? Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. Before we begin, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our newest stories. Thank you for joining us and supporting the channel on this journey. Tell us in the comments, what would you do if you discovered an unexpected clue while helping someone? Now let's step into the beginning of this story and uncover the first moments that started everything. Don't touch that Ducati until you understand what you're really looking at, Ethan Walker said quietly, his hand resting on the $1 million motorcycle that everyone else had already given up on. The room went silent because the single dad nobody knew had just noticed something 12 experts had missed. Claire Montgomery had offered $1 million to restore her late husband's Ducati, expecting another expensive repair. She never expected a small $6 replacement part to raise questions about everything she believed about her husband's final days. Ethan Walker had not walked into the Montgomery estate looking for attention, money, or a chance to impress anyone. He came because he knew machines told stories, and this one was telling a story that no one wanted to hear. The morning Ethan arrived at Montgomery Motors, the contrast between his world and Claire's was impossible to ignore. Her headquarters stood above the city with polished glass walls, private offices, and employees who measured success in millions of dollars. Ethan arrived in an older pickup truck with his 8-year-old daughter Lily sitting beside him, carrying a small backpack and a drawing she wanted to finish after school. "Dad," Lily asked as they pulled into the parking lot, "are you really fixing a motorcycle worth that much?" Ethan smiled. "I'm just trying to understand what's wrong with it." That was always how he worked. He did not see machines as expensive objects. He saw them as puzzles. After losing his wife years earlier, Ethan had built his life around one simple promise: give Lily stability, honesty, and a father she could always count on. He ran a small garage outside town, repaired old vehicles, and never chased recognition. Most people saw a mechanic with oil-stained hands. They never saw the years of knowledge behind those hands. Claire Montgomery stood beside the Ducati when Ethan entered the private restoration room. She was a powerful CEO who had built an empire, but that day she looked less like a business leader and more like someone holding onto the last connection to the man she loved. "Every specialist said the bike was impossible to restore," Claire said. "I don't need another opinion. I need someone who can bring it back." Ethan studied the motorcycle without answering. He noticed the details others ignored: the replaced pieces, the unusual marks, the small repair that seemed too simple to matter. Claire watched him closely. She was used to people trying to impress her. Ethan did the opposite. He barely spoke. "You found something," she said. Ethan looked up. "I found something someone wanted hidden." For the first time in months, Claire felt something other than grief. It was uncertainty. The Ducati was no longer just a memory of her husband. It had become a question waiting for an answer. And Ethan Walker, the single father everyone underestimated, might be the only person capable of finding it. The first thing Ethan Walker noticed was not the engine, the paint, or the expensive craftsmanship. It was the silence. A machine like this should have told a story through every sound, every movement, every small detail. But Claire Montgomery's Ducati was quiet in a way that felt unusual. Ethan stood beside the motorcycle for several minutes while everyone in the room waited for him to speak. The engineers before him had focused on restoring what people could see: the polished exterior, the damaged pieces, the expensive components. Ethan looked deeper. That was what he had always done. At his small garage outside town, he fixed cars that other people had already decided were beyond repair. He listened before he touched anything. He observed before he replaced anything. Claire watched from across the room, trying to understand the man who seemed completely unaffected by the pressure surrounding him. Most people who entered her world changed the moment they saw her name, her company, or her wealth. Ethan did not. He simply asked questions about the motorcycle. "When was the last time your husband rode it?" Ethan asked. Claire looked at the Ducati for a moment before answering. 3 days before he passed away." Her voice became softer. "He cared about that bike more than almost anything he owned." Ethan nodded slowly. He understood that this was not just a repair job. For Claire, this motorcycle represented a memory she refused to lose. For years, people had told her to move forward, to stop searching for answers, to accept what happened. But Ethan noticed something different. The Ducati was not just a reminder of the past. It was a message left behind. Outside the restoration room, Lily sat with a notebook on her lap, drawing pictures while waiting for her father. She had learned that Ethan often became quiet when he was thinking. It was not the kind of silence that meant he was lost. It was the kind that meant he was putting pieces together. Claire eventually stepped closer. "Can you fix it?" she asked. Ethan looked at the motorcycle, then at her. "I can try." It was not the confident answer she expected. She was used to people promising impossible things when money was involved. Ethan did not promise. He worked. That difference stayed with her. As the hours passed, Ethan carefully examined every part of the Ducati. He checked the areas that had already been repaired. He compared the condition of different components. Then he found something small near the lower section of the bike. A replacement piece that looked ordinary. Something most people would never notice. Ethan picked it up carefully and studied it. "This was changed recently," he said. Claire moved closer. "Is that important?" Ethan did not answer immediately. He looked at the small piece in his hand and remembered something from his years working with machines. The smallest details were often the ones people ignored. "I do not know yet," he finally said. "But someone spent time making this look like it belonged here." Claire felt a strange feeling she had not experienced since losing her husband. Not hope exactly. Not yet. Something smaller. Something more dangerous. Curiosity. And for the first time, she wondered if the man standing beside the Ducati was not there to repair a motorcycle. Maybe he was there to uncover something that had been waiting all along. Claire Montgomery had spent years making decisions in rooms where every second mattered. She knew how to negotiate billion-dollar contracts, handle difficult investors, and lead hundreds of employees through uncertainty. But standing beside Ethan Walker in the Ducati restoration room, she found herself facing something she could not control. A question. Why was this small replacement piece on her husband's motorcycle changed shortly before his final ride? Ethan did not rush to answer. He placed the part on the workbench and carefully examined it again. "Most people would never notice this," he said. Claire looked at him. "But you did." Ethan gave a small nod. "Because the things people overlook are usually the things that matter most." Those words stayed with her. Claire was used to people searching for what they could gain from her. Ethan was searching for what was true. That difference was impossible to ignore. While Ethan continued inspecting the Ducati, Claire learned more about the man behind the quiet voice and steady hands. She discovered he owned a small garage several miles outside the city, where he repaired everything from old trucks to family vehicles. He never advertised luxury services. He never chased wealthy clients. He simply helped people who needed someone they could trust. "You could charge more for your skills," Claire said. Ethan continued working. "I charge enough." "Enough for what?" she asked. Ethan looked toward the window where Lily was sitting outside with her notebook. "Enough to take care of my daughter." It was the first time Claire saw the person behind the mechanic. Not a man looking for an opportunity. Not someone impressed by her money. A father building a life around responsibility. That evening, Ethan drove home with Lily in the passenger seat. She looked at him and asked, "Did the rich lady's motorcycle tell you anything?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Maybe. Maybe means yes," Lily said. Ethan laughed quietly. It was one of the rare moments when the weight on his shoulders felt lighter. But the mystery waiting inside the Ducati was growing heavier. The next morning, Ethan returned to Montgomery Motors and continued his inspection. He compared old maintenance records, checked the repair history, and noticed something unusual. The official documents showed one thing, but the motorcycle itself suggested another. Someone had worked on the Ducati between the last recorded service and Nathan Montgomery's final day with it. Claire noticed the change in Ethan's expression. "You found something else." Ethan looked at the records in his hand. Someone changed parts of this motorcycle without documenting it. Claire felt her chest tighten. "Are you saying my husband knew?" Ethan paused. "I am saying we do not know enough yet." That answer frustrated her. She wanted certainty. She wanted something simple. But Ethan understood something Claire had not learned yet. The truth rarely appeared all at once. It arrived piece by piece, just like a machine being carefully rebuilt. Before Ethan left for the day, he noticed a small mark hidden beneath the replacement piece. It was not damage. It was a symbol, a marking that looked intentional. Ethan took a picture and saved it on his phone. He did not tell Claire what he suspected, not because he wanted to hide the truth from her, because he needed to be sure before changing everything she believed about her husband. And somewhere inside Montgomery Motors, someone else realized Ethan Walker was getting closer to a secret that was never supposed to be discovered. The symbol beneath the replacement piece was only a few inches wide, but to Ethan Walker, it felt larger than the entire motorcycle. It was not a random mark left by a mechanic. It was deliberate. Someone wanted that small detail to remain hidden. Ethan stood alone in the restoration room after everyone had gone home, looking at the picture saved on his phone. He had spent years learning that machines carried memories. A worn part, a strange repair, a missing record. Every detail had a reason. But this time, the answer was connected to a person, not just a machine. Nathan Montgomery, the man Claire still believed she understood. The next morning, Claire arrived earlier than usual. She had barely slept. For the first time since Ethan began working on the Ducati, she was not thinking about the finished motorcycle. She was thinking about the questions surrounding it. "You found something yesterday," Claire said as she entered the room. Ethan looked up from the workbench. "I found something unusual." That is not the same answer. Ethan respected that. Claire was not a person who accepted vague explanations. She had built her company by demanding facts. "The repair history does not match the condition of the motorcycle," Ethan said. "Someone made changes that were not recorded." Claire looked at the Ducati silently. "My husband was careful with everything." Ethan nodded. "That is exactly why this stands out." The words were difficult for Claire to hear. Nathan had been the person she trusted most. The idea that something about his final days had been hidden from her felt impossible. But Ethan did not accuse anyone. He did not create a story without proof. That was one of the reasons Claire was beginning to trust him. He followed the evidence, not assumptions. Later that afternoon, Claire asked Ethan to review every maintenance document connected to the Ducati. Together, they went through years of records. Most of them were ordinary. Oil changes, routine inspections, service appointments. Then Ethan stopped. "What is it?" Claire asked. Ethan pointed to one entry. "This service date." Claire looked closer. That was 2 weeks before Nathan passed away. Ethan nodded. "But the part installed during this service was removed later." Claire frowned. "How do you know?" Ethan gave a simple answer. "Because whoever replaced it used the wrong method." It was a small mistake. The kind of mistake most people would never notice. But Ethan noticed. Claire looked at him differently now. She was no longer seeing the mechanic from a small garage. She was seeing someone with patience, experience, and a level of attention she rarely found in her own world. That evening, Ethan returned home and found Lily waiting at the kitchen table with a drawing. It showed a motorcycle, a garage, and 3 people standing together. "Who was the third person?" Ethan asked. Lily smiled. "The lady from the big building." Ethan looked at the picture and laughed softly. "You think she belongs there?" Lily shrugged. "She looks lonely." Ethan did not answer immediately. Children notice things adults ignored. The next day, Claire received a message from her company's legal department. Someone had requested access to old records connected to Nathan's final projects. She looked at the name attached to the request and felt a sudden change in the room around her. Someone else had started looking for the same answers Ethan was finding. And that meant Ethan Walker was not the only person who knew there was something hidden inside the Ducati. Claire Montgomery stared at the message on her screen for several seconds before she moved. The request was simple, but the name attached to it changed everything. Someone inside her company had asked for access to the same records Ethan Walker was investigating. Someone was looking into Nathan Montgomery's final projects, and they were doing it quietly. Claire had spent years believing that information was something she controlled. As the CEO of Montgomery Motors, she knew every major decision, every important contract, and every person who had influence inside her company. But now, for the first time, she wondered if there were things happening beneath the surface that even she had never seen. The next morning, Ethan arrived at the private garage area before Claire. He had spent the night reviewing the pictures he took of the Ducati and comparing them with the service records. The small symbol beneath the replacement piece continued to bother him. It reminded him of a signature. Not a name, but a message from someone who wanted to be remembered. "You were here early," Claire said when she walked in. Ethan looked up. "I needed to check something." She placed a folder on the workbench. "These are Nathan's final project documents." Ethan looked surprised. "You trust me with these?" Claire paused. "I am not sure what I trust yet." It was an honest answer. Ethan respected that. Claire was not pretending to have all the answers anymore. She was trying to find them. Together, they reviewed the documents. Nathan had been working on a new automotive technology project before his passing. The project was important enough that several executives had been involved, but the final records were incomplete. Ethan noticed the same pattern he had seen with the Ducati. Missing details, unexplained changes, information that existed, but not in the places it should have been. Your husband was very organized, Ethan said. People like that do not leave gaps by accident. Claire looked away for a moment. You think someone removed information? Ethan did not answer immediately. I think someone wanted certain questions to disappear. The conversation stayed with Claire long after Ethan left. She returned to her office and opened old files she had not looked at since Nathan passed away. She found meeting notes, emails, and project reports. Everything appeared normal at first. Then she noticed something. A name appeared repeatedly in documents connected to Nathan's final months. Victor Hayes, the company's chief financial officer. Victor had been one of Nathan's closest professional partners. After Nathan's death, he had helped Claire manage the transition and had always presented himself as someone protecting the company. That evening, Claire invited Victor to her office. I need to ask you about Nathan's final project, she said. Victor smiled calmly. Claire, you know grief can make people search for answers that are not there. The words were gentle, but something about them felt wrong. Claire had heard that tone before. It was the tone people used when they believed they knew more than everyone else in the room. Meanwhile, Ethan was at home helping Lily finish her homework when he received a message from an unknown number. There was only one sentence. Stop looking at the Ducati. Ethan stared at the screen. He did not feel afraid. He felt certain. The mystery surrounding the motorcycle was no longer just about Nathan Montgomery's past. Someone was paying attention. And whoever that person was, they already knew Ethan Walker was getting close to the truth. The message on Ethan Walker's phone remained on the screen long after he finished reading it. Stop looking at the Ducati. 4 words. No explanation. No name. No reason. Most people would have seen it as a warning. Ethan saw it as confirmation. Someone was paying attention because there was something worth finding. The next morning, Ethan returned to Montgomery Motors earlier than usual. He did not tell Claire about the message immediately. He knew something important about truth. The moment emotions became stronger than facts, mistakes happened. Ethan had built his life around patience. After losing his wife and becoming Lily's only parent, he learned that rushing rarely solved anything. He walked into the restoration room and looked at the Ducati again. The motorcycle was silent, but the story behind it was becoming louder. Claire arrived shortly after and immediately noticed something different about him. Something happened, she said. Ethan looked at her. Someone knows we are asking questions. Claire became still. Who? I do not know. For the first time, Claire saw uncertainty in Ethan's expression. Not fear. Not panic. Just awareness. She understood then that this was no longer only about discovering hidden details about Nathan's motorcycle. It was about understanding why those details were hidden in the first place. Claire decided to open more of Nathan's private records. She had avoided many of them after his passing because every document felt like another reminder of what she had lost. But now she needed answers. Together, she and Ethan reviewed old project files connected to Nathan's final year at Montgomery Motors. Ethan noticed something unusual in the timeline. Several important decisions had been approved during a period when Nathan was already reducing his public role at the company. Your husband was stepping back, Ethan said. Claire nodded. He trusted Victor to handle more operations. Ethan looked at the documents again, and Victor gained more control. Claire did not respond. She did not want to believe it. Victor Hayes had been there during one of the hardest periods of her life. He had helped her manage the company when she felt overwhelmed. He had told her he was protecting Nathan's legacy. But now, every piece of information created another question. That afternoon, Claire asked Victor about the missing records. He arrived at her office with the same calm confidence he always carried. Claire, I think you are letting this mechanic create doubts where there are none, Victor said. The words bothered her more than she expected. Not because he mentioned Ethan's profession, but because he dismissed him without knowing him. Ethan has found things that no one else noticed, Claire replied. Victor smiled slightly. Sometimes people looking for answers find patterns that are not really there. Claire watched him carefully. Months earlier, she might have accepted that explanation. But things had changed. She had started seeing the difference between confidence and truth. That evening, Ethan returned home and found Lily waiting at the kitchen table with a question. "Dad, why does the CEO look happier when she is around you?" Ethan paused. Children had a way of asking the questions adults avoided. "I think she is just trying to understand what happened," he said. Lily looked at him. "Maybe she is also trying to understand you." Ethan smiled, but said nothing. The next morning, Ethan discovered something hidden inside the Ducati's old maintenance records. A small note attached to a service invoice. It was not a full message, only a few words, but they were enough to change everything. Nathan Montgomery had not just left behind a motorcycle. He had left behind a trail, and Ethan Walker had just found the first real sign of where that trail led. The small note attached to Nathan Montgomery's old service invoice was only a few words, but Ethan Walker knew immediately that it mattered. "Look beneath what was replaced." Ethan read the sentence again, then looked at the Ducati sitting quietly in the restoration room. Nathan had not written a long explanation. He had not left a dramatic message. He had left a clue for someone patient enough to find it. Claire Montgomery stood beside Ethan, reading the note with a mixture of confusion and disbelief. "Why would my husband leave something like this?" she asked. Ethan looked at the motorcycle. Maybe because he knew someone would not want the truth discovered. Claire wanted to reject the idea, but she could not ignore the evidence in front of her. The missing records, the changed parts, the hidden symbol, the note. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Nathan had known something was wrong. That afternoon, Ethan carefully examined the area mentioned in the note. He removed a small panel near the motorcycle's internal structure and found a hidden compartment that had been overlooked by previous technicians. Inside was a small storage device containing several files. Claire looked at Ethan, shocked. "How did you know it was there?" Ethan smiled slightly. "I did not know. I just listened to the machine." The files were encrypted, but the information was enough to reveal something important. Nathan had been collecting evidence about unusual financial activity connected to a company project. The name appearing in several documents was the same name Claire had started questioning. Victor Hayes. Claire sat silently as the reality began to change around her. The man she trusted to help protect Nathan's company might have been hiding information from her. But Ethan reminded her not to make decisions based only on suspicion. "We need proof," he said, "not guesses." That was the difference between Ethan and everyone else Claire had known. He did not chase drama. He chased facts. Later that evening, Claire visited Ethan's garage. She wanted to understand why someone like him had spent so many years living quietly. She found Lily drawing at a small table near the front window while Ethan organized tools. The scene surprised her. There was no luxury, no impressive office, no employees trying to impress him, just a father creating a safe place for his daughter. "You could have had a very different life," Claire said. Ethan looked at the tools in his hands. "I had a different life." He paused. "Then I learned what mattered more." Claire understood what he meant. For years, she had believed success was measured by growth, influence, and achievement. Ethan measured success by being there when his daughter needed him. The next morning, Claire made a decision. She would no longer let Victor control the information inside her company. She called an internal review and requested access to every document connected to Nathan's final project. Victor immediately tried to stop it. "Claire, this is unnecessary," he said. But this time, she did not step back. "I spent too long trusting people who told me what I wanted to hear," she replied. "I am not making that mistake again." For the first time, Victor realized something had changed. Claire Montgomery was no longer searching for comfort. She was searching for the truth. And standing beside her was the single father who had uncovered what everyone else had missed. Claire Montgomery had spent her entire career believing that control was the foundation of success. If she knew every number, every contract, and every person responsible for each decision, she could protect everything she had built. But now, standing in the middle of her own company, she realized there was one thing she had never controlled: the truth. The internal review moved quickly. Ethan Walker helped organize the information from Nathan's hidden files, but he stayed careful with every conclusion. He did not accuse anyone without evidence. He did not let emotions decide what happened next. That was something Claire admired more than she expected. In her world, people often moved quickly because they wanted to win. Ethan moved carefully because he wanted to be right. The review team discovered several unusual financial transfers connected to Nathan's final automotive project. The amounts were not enough to immediately prove wrongdoing, but the pattern was impossible to ignore. Someone had been moving information and resources away from the project while keeping Nathan distracted. Claire looked through the documents with a heavy expression. "I should have seen this," she said quietly. Ethan shook his head. "You trusted someone you believed deserved your trust. That is not the same as ignoring the truth." Those words stayed with her. For years, Claire had blamed herself for losing Nathan. She believed that if she had paid closer attention, asked more questions, or been more involved, things would have been different. Ethan reminded her that carrying guilt was not the same as finding answers. Later that day, Claire visited Ethan's garage again. This time, she did not arrive as a CEO. She arrived as someone looking for a conversation. Lily was sitting at the workbench, carefully coloring another drawing of the Ducati. Claire smiled. "You really like that motorcycle?" Lily nodded. "My dad says every machine has a story." Claire looked at Ethan. "He says that about everything." Ethan smiled. "Because people are the same way." Claire thought about that. For years, she had judged people by their positions, their achievements, and their appearances. Ethan had shown her another way to look at the world. A person's value was not always visible at first glance. The next morning, Victor Hayes requested a private meeting with Claire. He entered her office with the same confidence he had always carried. "Claire, I think you are making a mistake," he said. "You are allowing one mechanic to influence decisions that affect an entire company." Claire looked at him calmly. Months earlier, those words might have worked. But she was not the same person anymore. "You keep calling him a mechanic," she said. "But you never asked what kind of person he is." Victor became quiet. Claire continued. "That was my mistake too." It was the first time she admitted it openly. She had looked at Ethan and seen only what was on the surface. A small garage, simple clothes, a quiet life. She never considered that those things could exist alongside intelligence, experience, and integrity. After Victor left, Claire found Ethan outside the restoration room. The Ducati was almost complete, but neither of them was focused only on the motorcycle anymore. "I owe you an apology," Claire said. Ethan looked at her. "For what?" "For seeing your position before seeing you." Ethan was silent for a moment. He appreciated the honesty, but he knew trust was not rebuilt with one conversation. Claire understood that too. She was not asking for forgiveness. Immediately, she was finally learning that some things could not be purchased. They had to be earned. And as the final pieces of Nathan's mystery came closer to being revealed, Claire realized the man who entered her life to repair a motorcycle had already repaired something far more important: the way she saw people. The final piece of the puzzle was not hidden inside the Ducati. It was hidden inside the people who had been searching for the truth. Ethan Walker stood beside the motorcycle as the last documents from Nathan Montgomery's files were reviewed. The evidence was finally clear. The missing information, the altered records, and the hidden project details all connected to one person. Victor Hayes had used his position inside Montgomery Motors to control information and protect his own interests. When Claire Montgomery confronted the truth, she did not feel victorious. She felt disappointed, not because she had lost power, but because someone she trusted had taken advantage of that trust. Ethan watched her quietly. He understood that discovering the truth was not always the ending people expected. Sometimes the hardest part was accepting that the world was different from what you believed. The company moved forward with the investigation, and Claire made a decision that surprised everyone. She did not hide the mistakes. She addressed them publicly. During the company meeting, she stood in front of her employees and admitted that she had trusted the wrong person and failed to notice the warning signs. Many leaders would have protected their image first. Claire chose honesty instead. Ethan watched from the back of the room, just as he had many times before. The difference was that this time, people saw him. They no longer saw a man from a small garage. They saw the person who uncovered the truth when others could not. After the meeting, Claire found Ethan outside near his truck. "You know," she said, "when you first walked into my company, I thought you were just someone I hired to fix a motorcycle." Ethan smiled slightly. "And now?" Claire looked back at the building behind them. "Now I know I was wrong about a lot of things." Ethan appreciated the honesty, but he did not forget the past. Claire understood that. She knew trust was something built slowly. She did not try to buy his forgiveness with money or offer him a position just to make things easier. Instead, she showed him through actions. She supported his garage, respected his time with Lily, and treated him as an equal. Weeks later, the restored Ducati was displayed in a private company event. But the motorcycle was no longer just a symbol of Nathan's memory. It represented a new beginning. Lily stood beside Ethan, looking proudly at the finished restoration. Claire joined them and smiled. "Your father really does know how to bring things back to life." Lily looked at Ethan and said, "I told you machines have stories." Ethan laughed softly. Claire looked at the two of them and realized something she had never understood before. A family was not built through wealth, status, or perfect circumstances. It was built through patience, kindness, and people choosing each other every day. The Ducati had brought Ethan into Claire's world, but it was never just about a motorcycle. It was about a woman who learned to see beyond appearances, a man who proved that quiet strength mattered, and a little girl who reminded them both that the most valuable things in life were often the ones money could never buy.